Boeing 737-800 is banking to the right with a massive 70 degrees angle. But how can this happen in a modern aviation years? Well, I'm going to show you. Stay tuned. The time is the 4th of May 2007. We are in the southern part of Africa. This is the largest city in Cameroon, however it's not the capital. The flight departed from Abidjan at 18:30 local time. It has 55 passengers on board, but only 17 of them will remain on the other flight from Douala. The aircraft arrived to Douala at 22:01 local time, without any issues. The crew taxied to the stand C5 or Charlie 5, and the lack of marshal, they parked the aircraft manually. The stopover was scheduled from 22 to 23. The ground crew deboarded the passengers and boarded the new ones, while the pilots looked up the matters and charts. Unfortunately, they had found out that the weather is way too bad for departure, so they delayed the flight. Luckily, when they checked the weather soon after, it improved, so they had started preparing the aircraft for the departure. The captain is a 52-year-old male pilot with over 8,600 flight hours, of which more than 800 is on the 737 NGs as a captain. He got his license in 1991. He had only some minor problems, like he can be a little bit bossy or he wore lenses, but in overall he was totally capable of flying the aircraft. In the right side of the cabin, a 23-year-old first officer was. He got his license in 2006, however it was for the 737-300. He got his license for the 737-800 on the 16th of March 2007. Now if you remember when the accident happened, you will see that it was approximately 2 months prior to the accident. So this is why he got only 57 hours on the 737-800. At 23:54, the crew requested the startup clearance, which was approved by the tower. It's worth mentioning that this clearance was the second one. They had requested another one half an hour earlier, but the RTC told them that the 80s is way worse, so they can see that it's impossible to depart. The pilots started the engines. They had 2 good engine starts. At 0021, the first officer requested the taxi clearance, which was approved by the controller. In the final report, they did not place too much sound on this conversation. However, in my opinion, it is very important to realize how bad the weather was.
You're struggling to look and you've got the vipers.
At time 0:24, the tower called them up and asked if they ready for clearance. The first officer said yes, but they did not follow the seat. They decided to turn right shortly after takeoff to avoid the storm. Both the ATC and the crew agreed, and they lined up runway 12. At 0:28 and 03 seconds, the toggle button was pressed, and the aircraft began its roll on runway 12. 30 seconds later, the aircraft started climbing, followed by the gear retraction. The whole takeoff sequence went as usual, although it will soon change. At 0:29, the captain called out, "Heading select," which was read back by the first officer. This could sound totally normal if you don't see the cockpit, because there was an enormous mistake, which will lead to the crash. In the Boeing aircrafts, you can select any of the autopilot functions without turning the CMD on. This will give you a visual input of what systems are on. however, it will not do it until one of the CMDs is on. In this case, the LNAV and the heading select were both on together with the auto throttle was selected, but none of them was actually activated. The captain continued turning the heading selector to the right, which was sadly followed by the turning as the yoke was slightly pushed to the right. This continued until the captain called, "Ok, command." This would mean that the CMD is on and the autopilot is flying. But as you can imagine, it did not happen here. The bank continued to the right until it reached 35 degrees to the right when the
bank angle, bank angle, bank angle
was heard in the cockpit. The captain immediately turned his yoke to the left, then to the right, and again to the left, and finally to the right. The airplane was banking from one side to the other. In the final right, the bank angle was an extreme 50 degrees, although it will get worse. By this time, the CMDA was finally pushed without any cause, but it turned out it was too late. The bank was still increasing while both of the pilots tried to figure out something to stop the banking. 8 seconds later, after the CMD was pushed, the aircraft reached its maximum bank angle, which was 150 degrees. Soon after this terrifying bang, the captain started adding rudder, which temporarily looked it was working, but the plane was now descending a lot. At 00, 30 and 20 seconds, the aircraft crashed around 7.5 kilometers south from the airport, with 287 knots of airspeed. Both the black box and the flight data recorder were found in good condition and were transported to the NTSB headquarters in Washington, USA. The investigation team identified 80 of the passengers and crew by DNA testing or fingerprint testing. The investigation team concluded that the whole accident was a pilot error, plus it pointed out it was partly because of poor training in Africa region. Also, it was harder to identify the situation without any ground references. The NTSB also pointed out the time of the accident and the overworked pilots. They had 6 flights prior to the accident in the past 7 days, with only 1.5 days of resting time. So if you have found this video interesting, please like and subscribe. It will help me make more of these videos. Thank you for tuning in. See you in the next video.